Well, welcome to another edition of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse. And as you can see behind me, Miss Gemser has shit the bed and fell down on me, so I gotta come up with a new backdrop of some sorts, which I haven't had a chance to do yet. But if anybody's interested in that big poster, PM me. I'll sell it at this point. It's honestly, it was too heavy to stay up there. The tape wouldn't hold it. So that was that. But anyway, we're going to really sort of push the envelope a little bit here with this episode and hope I don't get fucking thrown off. But there's certain things that go on in film that are largely ignored by today's audience because they're either triggered or woke or cancel culture or whatever the fuck is going on here. But back in 1972, and I'm going to have to use a bleep in here on my own design because I know what'll happen. There was a film released called The Legend of Bleep Charlie. And originally it was supposed to star Woody Strode, who was a noted character actor at that point. But Woody had done a cameo in Once Upon a Time in the West and got $10K for doing that, and that opened the door for him to do a lot of stuff in Europe. So that's where he focused a lot of his attention in the 70s. What happened was relative newcomer right after MASH, Fred Williamson, was picked to be Bleep Charlie. And he had to learn how to ride a horse and do all this other stuff. Well, the plot is that Charlie is a slave, is a blacksmith, and his mother wants him freed, and his dying master writes out a certificate saying that he's a freed man. This doesn't go over well with Houston, who was played by veteran character actor John Ryan, who could basically play a complete scumbag at the drop of a hat. Anyway, Houston takes umbrage to him being freed and has a bunch of his buddies and him spy on Charlie when he's making love to his woman. And also note that this film is rated PG, okay? And like I said, there is ample use of the N-word all over here. And other curse words in general, and the violence. So how it got rated PG is beyond me, but it was released from Paramount. So anyway, Houston beats up Charlie, rips up his free man certificate, and locks him in a barn. Well, there's going to be a slave auction because the master has died, and two other slaves, Toby and Joshua, played by Derville Martin, and Don Pedro Cali, have already lined up horses for the escape. So, trying to get out, Charlie beats Houston to death, and that sets a slaver after them. So, they're riding around, and, this is one of those films that seems to have something to offend everybody in it, because Native Americans got offended of a scene when a group of Indians ride up to Charlie and company, and one Indian reaches out to see if the black rubs off. Of course, that pissed off a lot of people. So they wind up in a town that had never seen freed black men before, and are basically going into a saloon. Everybody leaves. They're sitting there having a beer when the sheriff comes in and asks them to leave because he doesn't want his town shot up because the slavers are coming in. Well, they basically say they're tired of running. So the sheriff runs out to meet these slavers, and when they refuse to back off, he rides back into town to warn Charlie and company that they are definitely on the way. And they gun the sheriff down anyway because he's in the way of the slaves, and basically there's a huge gunfight that breaks out, and pretty much all the slavers are killed. So at that point, there's a couple other characters introduced. There's this old man who claims he's a Blackfoot, and this young kid who's fast on the gun. So they're approached by a farmer and his wife that were having a problem with this guy, the Reverend, played by an over-the-top Joe Santos, who basically has hung this guy's younger brother and comes in and takes whatever he wants. And he's afraid that they're going to take his young wife. Well, of course, there's an attraction between Charlie and the young wife. So they go out and basically beat off the Reverend's first attack, but then there's a final attack where basically the guy who said he was a Blackfoot gets killed, the young kid with the gun gets killed, and Charlie and company basically wipe out the whole gang of marauders, but Joshua is also killed in the process. So that's how that one ended, with the two guys, Toby and Charlie riding off. Well, this was produced by Larry Spangler. Go look that guy up because you ain't going to find much on him, and directed by Martin Goldman. Well, Larry decided to direct the next installment of the Bleep Charlie series, The Soul of Bleep Charlie. And this finds Bleep Charlie and Toby following these Confederates that are basically trying to resurrect the South again and have some kind of fortress built in Mexico, and are basically rounding up freed blacks and putting them back in slavery. And it opens up where they basically go into a town where there's two blacks that have a store, and they basically kill everybody in the whole town and loot it. There are two survivors, one black dude who's really good with a bow and arrow who was staked out for hitting somebody, and this young kid who hid under the boardwalk. So Charlie and Toby decide to take up the cause and free the slaves. And in doing that, he gets a love interest, Elena, who is basically been captured down there. So there's a bandit, Sandoval, played by Pedro Armendáriz Jr., and he captures the guys and decides he can sell them to the Southerners. But in the interim, they rob $100,000 worth of gold bullion from a train. And what they were going to do is basically buy the slaves' freedom by trading the gold to the colonel for the slaves. Well, that ain't going to wash, because the colonel sends one slave back saying that if they don't get the 100,000 in gold, they're going to kill a slave every hour. So Charlie cuts a deal with Sandoval to basically attack the fortress, which they do. And basically in both of these films, the action is really good. I always love a good shoot 'em up, and there's a bunch of good shoot 'em ups in these films. They attack the fort and basically have a battle with the Confederates, and the colonel is shot. Before the colonel dies, he shoots Charlie's love interest in the back, and she dies. And that probably was going to be the end of the film, end of the series, rather. But Fred Williamson decided to write a sequel. And in the sequel, he brought back Duval Martin, but I guess they couldn't use the Bleep Charlie logo or the Toby logo, so the film became Boss Bleep, okay? We all know that. And Williamson was different in this one. He's more decked out, like, with all in black, with the hat and the sideburns and the beard and a cut-off carbine. And him and Amos are bounty hunters. And the big line is, when they confront the mayor of the town, played by R.G. Armstrong, Amos says, well, you whites had so much fun hunting us blacks down that we decided to see how much fun we could have hunting whites down, because they're bounty hunters. So the town is under the thumb of Jed Clayton, played by veteran character actor William Smith as a bad guy. And what happened was that they had killed an outlaw on the way to the town, and there was a message in the outlaw's pocket about there was a sheriff's badge waiting for him in town. So basically he was part of Jed's gang, so they'd have control of the whole town. There are raids sporadically by Jed's men in the town, cleaning out everything they can, and they want the women next. So they rescue a girl named Clara May, whose father was shot by Clayton's men, and they gun down 3 of Clayton's men. This isn't sitting good with old Jed. So they capture Charlie, beat the crap out of him, bunch of stuff goes on, but he gets out, and he's gunning for revenge. Well, in a sort of repeat of the last Bleeper Charlie film, his love interest is killed by William Smith. He guns down William Smith. He's shot by the mayor, the R.G. Armstrong character, who throws a knife in and kills him, and basically asks Amos to get him out of this white town because he doesn't want to die there. So Fred knew he would take a certain amount of heat from doing this stuff. So on the DVD release, Fred wrote this: I used the N-word to create sensationalism at the box office, and all 3 films made money. You have to remember that all who used that word against me in those films regretted it. I personally approved this title, the song, and with the dialogue intact. And that was a quote from Fred in 2008. So the thing is, are these films available? Well, Boss Bleep has just come out on a Blu-ray from VCA. Now I'm going to share something with you, and of course I had to cover these up. This is the DVD for The Legend of Bleeper Charlie. All right, looks really good, right? Okay. And this is the DVD for The Soul of Bleeper Charlie. again, cover looks really good. These were put out by Black's DVD, a company out of Newark, New Jersey. And this seems to be the only source for these two movies, but they're not good sources. What happened was, on The Legend of Bleeper Charlie, it must have been out on a VHS tape at one point, which basically had all the cursing edited out except for the N-word. So you have ample use of the N-word in this thing. The print is horrible. It has tons of dropouts. Occasionally it whites out, but you can still see what's going on. See how I suffer for you people with my art and stuff, trying to look at shit like this? The soul of Bleeper Charlie, however, is taken off a completely washed out film print, which, you know, has splices, edits, and it's basically like watching the film in sepia tone. Why these films aren't available is because of the one word that's used there. Now, here's the thing. I've been taken to task by saying that these films, that word appeared on marquees on 42nd Street. And it did, because Graydon Clark made a film called Bleeper Lover. And the exhibitors were tripping over themselves to get that title up on a marquee because that word drew money. Regardless of what you may feel about that word and how much of an ugly word it is, in the 70s, that word drew money. And exhibitors weren't shy about putting it up on, you know, the marquee. And of course the films were horribly panned. Don Pedro Cali even said, he goes, look, racism has been with us all along and is always with us, and it's pointless, you know, to not include that point as a historical reference, because that's the way it was. As far as whether these films ever got anywhere else, somebody, you know, there's references that one film, The Legend, played on TV as A Legend of Black Charlie. And I can't see how that was possible. But I do know that a lot of films that were shot in the 70s that aired on 70s TV might have had cursing in them. And I'll give you one example. There was a Western, a Kirk Douglas Western with him and Henry Fonda called There Was a Crooked Man. And there's a robbery scene with Arthur O'Connell. And there was all kinds of words in that film like shit, son of a bitch, piss, and whatever. They were all edited out. They didn't edit out this one line where Arthur O'Connell was being robbed and he goes, damn it, a man works like a bleeper all his life only to get robbed. That was okay, that was left in. It seemed that was okay to use on 70s TV, which I don't really understand that whole point unless they didn't think it was that bad then or they were doing it to inflame people. God only knows, but everybody knew that that word was inflammatory and that word would draw money on 42nd Street. Matter of fact, there was another film called The $1 Million Bleeper that was up there. So, again, I'm skirting this whole thing because I don't want to get fucking suspended again. But I just feel it's important to talk about these films because aside from the title, they were pretty good action films and had a lot of shootings, and I'm a big Western fan, and, you know, Fred worked good in this whole thing. So did Duval Martin. They were pretty good films. You know, a few character actors sprinkled in for some ambiance, but they were pretty good action films. And forget the social commentary. But now here's my challenge to some of these boutique DVD companies that claim that like they push the envelope. Like one of them just put out The Scavengers, which is a totally racist fucking film, and Hot Spur, which is another racist film. So here's my challenge, boys. You guys got more resources than I'll ever have. So why not look for some intact prints of this film, polish it up, get a hold of Fred while he's still breathing, and put out a couple deluxe editions of maybe both of them on one DVD. Because, like I said, no matter how much you hate the word, these films have historical importance and should be seen in their entirety so you can appreciate what was going on back then. So that's our show for today. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. I am sitting here in pain because my back's all fucked up and I got to go see my cardiologist tomorrow to see if I still have any issues. So hopefully I won't. But until then, till the next time, stay safe. Never forget the past. And we'll see you on the flip side.